All right, 1 2 1 2 in the place to be. What's up, y'all? How y'all feel out there? Once again, it is that time for another edition of the In the Dungeon Show. I am Frank Red, and it is a pleasure and an honor to be in conversation with you on such an illustrious time of year. The NBA is at a point where every game matters to most teams, with the exception of a few. And I mean, the greatest spectacle in sports, I would say, is the NCAA tournament, because it's one and done. And miracles happen every year. And we're going to talk about it. And at the end of the day, the teams that we expected to possibly challenge for a national championship, they seem to always be there. But while that narrative is unfolding, some new heroes emerge. And I love it. So we're going to talk about the NCAA tournament. If you're in a bracket, share your highlights and your frustrations. I got one major pet peeve. I'm in a pool, which I've been in now for like over 15 years, that started with about 20 people. It now has over 250. All right. So it's it's evolved from literally, an opportunity to kind of show that you might know a little something about college basketball and basketball in general, to flat out gambling. That's exactly what it is. By the way, my name is Frank Red. How y'all doing out there? If you listen for the first time, welcome to the program. We like to have fun. We're heavy on content and intelligence, hip hop, and just conversation, man. Just enlightening each other about things that matter to us, diversions from what we normally do. And if you look at the screen, this is the In the Dungeon Show. You can hit me up at Big Frank Red on X. At some point, if you decide that you like the show and you want to subscribe, I certainly appreciate it. No question about that. But like I said, tonight we're going to talk about the NCAA tournament, men's and women's. When I came on air, the Stanford game, women's game, was still happening. I don't know the outcome, so maybe at some point you guys can inform me on how that game ultimately ends. But what a basketball game that is between the Stanford Lady Cardinals and the Iowa State Cyclones. The winner of that particular game makes it to the Sweet 16. All right. Golden State Warriors lose today 114-110 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And, we had thought that, aspirations of making it into the top six was realistic 2 weeks ago. And then slowly but surely, we did the walk. Kind of like the walk of shame, if you will. To the extent that now, Warrior fans simply want this team to be in the 9th position of the play-in. If they can get into that. Guess what, folks? There's no guarantee that the Warriors are even going to make the playoffs. Talk about irony. And I hope the ink is dry on that Steve Kerr extension, because it's going to be a lot of conversations. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not he is a very good coach. Of course, he's a great coach. But this has been a rough year to me, for a lot of different reasons. I'm not one of these pile on, shock jock type of people. But I know the game and I see things. And I don't think just because, you don't walk around with a name badge on that says NBA coach or general manager or scout or whatever the case, it doesn't mean that you don't understand the game on a deep level. Because those titles and those positions, to a large degree, about opportunities. That's what they're about. Once you get the opportunity and you prove that you belong there, then that's fine. But do you know how many great coaches there have been that there are that will never get those opportunities? Because it comes down to who you know. It is what it is. Which is why, from a young age, I've always thought that you had to define success for yourself. Because if you define success based on what other people deem as successful, you will be very unhappy in your life. And you will be unfulfilled. And it shouldn't be that way. I'm always like looking at little nuggets of information and supposedly this generation, 30 and under, are the most unhappy group that this nation has seen in a long time. And I think a lot of it, if it is true, a lot of it is because of just extreme expectations that are not necessarily derived by those individuals, but by society. And we need to get away from that. All right. Let me acknowledge some people, then I'm going to move forward. SG says, "Hi, Frank. How you doing, brother?" Quarterback Brock Purdy was in attendance at the Iowa State versus Stanford game. Good for him. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for the update. My man Mark Graves, thank you. You're right, Frank. Clay needs to start. Need a second threat scorer. The opposition is doubling Steph without a second scorer on the court. Yes. Yes. And it's costing the Warriors games at this point. Stanford is winning. Okay. All right, let's get into that. I put out a tweet or an X message, whatever you want to call it. And because I think about this stuff, I live alone, I have friends I hang out with, but I spend a lot of time thinking about stuff. And sports is really, really important to me, so I can come on air and sound reasonably intelligent, like I know what I'm talking about. And I love basketball. Basketball was my first girlfriend. The first thing that I really cared about, and I treated well, and I wanted to show respect to, so on and so forth. Klay Thompson going to the bench has been totally arbitrary. His numbers to me are worthy of starting. Now, I think you could rationalize Klay coming off the bench when the Warriors were winning games, but they're not winning games now. And like my man Mark Graves said, teams are loading up on Stephen Curry. And, Steph's had a rough 2 to 3 weeks. Today's game was probably his best game in 3 weeks. And I thought he looked fantastic. He looked fresh. He looked unbalanced. He didn't appear to be rushed. And even though the Warriors lost 114 to 110, I thought they played well enough to win against the Minnesota Timberwolves, one of the best teams in the NBA. Even without Cat Towns, this is a damn good team. Gobert is a problem. He really is. That dude could win Defensive Player of the Year every year. And he was a force inside tonight. And I thought the Warriors really battled really hard. A lot of guys play winning basketball. I think Jonathan Kuminga has regressed over the past 3 weeks from a mental standpoint. And that's disappointing to me because I root for the guy so much. And, there's another conversation again on the periphery with regards to, do the Warriors really want to pay this guy? Should he be paid? Yes. Is he going to get paid? Yes. Are the Warriors going to be the team to pay him? Because if he conducts himself like this now, and he's not a bad guy, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, you want to see that well-roundedness as a player and as a potential leader who's going to impact other people in a positive way. You don't always see that. I know he's 21. I get it. But in some respects, his progress should be accelerated because of the organization that he's in. And he's made leaps and bounds this year. But when you're talking about writing a check for what, 120 million, 130 million, that's what he wants. He wants to be paid like some of the top young players in the league. I get it. But who's going to pay him? So he's made some crucial mistakes over the past 2 or 3 games that have really put the Warriors in some adverse situations. So, he has to play better because he's one of the best players. He needs to be on the floor, but he needs to play better. He needs to stop complaining to the referees. And, it wasn't his fault that they lost the game, but he needs to be one of the guys. And he hasn't been playing like one of the guys over the past couple of weeks, in my opinion. Now, here's the dynamic with regards to Kerr and changing his lineup. Kerr basically, in my opinion, invented Brandon Podzinski in a lab. Like Frankenstein was invented in a lab. Steve Kerr and his coaches crafted a player out of Brandon Podzinski. If you watch Brandon play in the summer, you were like, what? Are you kidding me? This guy's not even an NBA player. And all he did was he came out in the season and played his tail off. Had a really good, solid rookie year. And he's having a good rookie year. But his effectiveness has decreased to the point where it's visible. He's in the scouting report. And I actually think that Kerr doesn't want to be wrong on this one. He wants to be right on this one. And that's the frustrating thing, because sometimes you have to change. You have to go against what you see. And I'm sure that he's using probably some analytical data that says we need another facilitator out there. Okay. This team is on the verge of not making the playoffs. They go after Brandon. On a defensive perspective, they go after him. The NBA referees collectively have said, we're not calling those charges at the rate that we were before. I've seen him take 3, 4, 5 charges to the chest that should have been offensive fouls that they didn't even call. Doesn't have a lot of confidence in his shot. It's a problem right now. Klay Thompson, even when Klay Thompson is not making shots, he spreads the court. He spreads the court. And because he's creating space on the court, he makes the game easier for everybody. And Chris Paul is playing at a high level on that second unit. So I believe that Steve Kerr is like, if I take Brandon out of the starting lineup, I could lose the kid. I get it. Because you can watch Brandon and you can tell that he lives and dies with like bad plays. He's a rookie. You wouldn't expect him just to be able to shake it off every time he has a bad game. But now is the time for this team to make the playoffs or the play-in. I admire what Steve Kerr said after the game when he's like, yo, we have a tough roadie. I'm not going to run Stephen Curry into the ground. Because somebody was talking about, Stephen's plus minus. When he's on the court, the Warriors play a lot better. They're generally ahead. When he's off the court, they don't play as well. And Curry's like, you know what? No, we're trying to keep his minutes down. I dig that. I'm all for that. which means that they have to get off to a good start. And I think that Klay Thompson will give them a better opportunity at this stage of the season to get off to a good start because he's a better offensive player than Brandon Podzinski. If I see it, other people see it. Okay? And here's the thing. Here's what nobody's talking about. The Warriors players see it too. This is a really smart, intelligent team. And, part of Kerr's dilemma also is he doesn't want to, show that he's been influenced by anybody coaching the team because that could cause some strife on the team. It could. It's really complicated. It really is. But what's not complicated is the Warriors are not playing well right now. They're not. And they put forth a pretty good defensive effort today against Minnesota. But wow. Friday, they got ran by the Pacers. They did. They just got ran. Defensively, we don't really know what team's going to show up defensively. And offensively, sometimes they get stuck. So, how do y'all feel about that? You guys think that I'm out of bounds, or do you think that at this stage, Klay should be starting? I think he helps his team position themselves in a more potent way than coming off the bench right now. So, Mark Graves says, JK is an immature basketball player. Needs to learn to turn the page on bad plays and get mentally back in the game. Yes. Yes, he does. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because this is a kid who has all-star potential. Not many teams have a Jonathan Kuminga. And his teammates are so smart that they notice it too. Now, he's a young guy. It's not his fault. Think about it. If GP2 makes that layup and the Warriors go up 1, that could have changed the entire complexion of the game, and maybe the Warriors win. But on a game-by-game basis, there are 2 or 3 plays that Jonathan Kuminga is making that someone with his talent in year 3 should not be making. And for commentators to focus on his stats is a disservice to the audience. It's basically why they got Jim Barnett off television and ultimately off the radio. Because Jim Barnett is one of the smartest, most brilliant regional broadcasters that I've heard. And he would not shade the truth. He would tell the truth because he knows the game. I loved it. I learned so much listening to Jim Barnett do a Warrior broadcast. It's like listening to Mike Krukow doing Giant games. I always learn something listening to Mike Krukow. Now the Giants actually, to me, are more interesting this year. They got a couple of players. I know it's fashionable to beat up on Farhan. I get it. I don't follow it that closely, but the Giants have a couple of guys that you might want to turn the television on, or listen to the radio, and check out, and maybe go out to the ballpark. I might even go to a game this year because they got a couple of players. So, I'm a Warrior supporter. I'm not a Warrior fan. I'm a strong Warrior supporter. I'm a Steph Curry fan. I'm a Draymond Green fan. But I'm interested in getting the pulse of the listeners. How do you guys feel about this team? Because if they don't make the play-in, it's going to be rough. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to show up next year. I heard an interview this morning with Michael Thompson, Klay Thompson's dad, on Sirius XM NBA radio. And I was just thinking to myself,
I don't see NBA radio in your contacts.
I was thinking to myself, what a joy it is to have a dad who has been through it, was a number one overall pick. And he talks so intelligently about Klay's situation and everything that Klay's had to deal with this year. And at the end of the conversation, he basically said, you know what? A lot of great players have come off the bench, the Manu Ginobilis of the world and so on and so forth, Michael Coopers, but he acknowledged what I acknowledged. Klay is not playing like a bench player right now.
In fact, I don't know
Klay,
who you are.
Klay is playing like what, a top 15 two guard in the league right now? Why is he starting? I don't get it. SG says, you're not out of balance, Frank. Okay. Andrew the Ghost says, I can't believe how bad my Warriors are right now. Specifically, Andrew, what's really getting under your craw? Because we can point to a lot of things, but, you know, they're not playing G League teams. They're playing other NBA teams that are good, that want to kick your butt, all right? And they played against a Minnesota team tonight that is good. And the Warriors played well enough to win. So I think my frustration with the Warriors is a lack of consistency, you know, because they can ramp it up. They ramped it up tonight. And I thought they looked pretty damn good. I thought they competed pretty hard. It came down to a play or two. That's what it came down to. The Warriors are the 10th seed. Yeah, so, I mean, listen. People are talking about Phoenix being the top team in the Western Conference. They're going to be in the play-in too. But, yo, listen. The Western Conference is hard. It's tough. It's almost not really about how many wins you have necessarily. It's about how are you playing. You know, what aren't you doing well? The Warriors take defensive games off. That's my biggest challenge with them. They complain too much to the referees. And then from a coaching standpoint, I've had a serious problem with the rotations all year. You talk about burning these veterans out. Okay, what about the guys on the bench that never get a chance to play? King Jonas has had spells where he's played more than Moses Moody. Are you kidding me? The Warriors blow another lead tonight. Well, again, GOAT, I saw Minnesota making some tough-ass shots. Ant-Man was loading it up. Conley Jr., Slow-Mo, Gobert. I thought, yo, this is a good team. Minnesota's 49-22. So I expect them to be good. On their home court, the Warriors need to do everything they can do to put themselves in the best position to win. Friday night's effort against Indiana defensively was just atrocious. It was terrible. Unacceptable. Andrew says, the Rockets are only one from taking the 10th seed away from the Warriors. Yeah, that's scary. My question is, what happens to the Warriors that were a top seed? They don't shoot as well. They certainly don't play defense like they did before. The league has gotten a lot better. Combination of a lot of different things. Players who are older are making more money now, and they're not playing better than they were when they were in their prime. So that limits the amount of money that the Warriors have to go out and get free agents who can actually play. So it's tough. It's why no team in the NBA or the NFL, with the exception of a few, can be good for 20 years. Think about this. The Warriors with the 5 straight finals. The Warriors have been good now for over a decade. When Cleveland had LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love and hit those championship caliber players, when they went away, Cleveland went to the bottom. The Lakers had some years before LeBron got there and the Lakers are just okay. This is the reality of sports. Mark Graves says, Naz Reid eyes get big when he plays the Warriors. Yeah, he does. It doesn't matter if he's playing at home. It doesn't matter if he's playing at Chase. I mean, it doesn't matter if he's playing at a local park. His eyes light up when he sees the Warriors. I'm just going to say the Warriors are pretty bad of a team this year. They're not good. And I think there's a lot of blame to go around. Again, I think because these guys are so professional and this organization is so tight, you know, they don't implode like maybe some other organizations would. But you're going to hear some stuff because there are going to be some guys on this roster now that are simply not going to be there next year. You know? I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can look at and have questions about. There's been some dysfunction. Andrew Wiggins not being there for a long period of time. He might have had the most right-minded reason, the most appropriate reason to be away from the team because there are things that are more important than basketball. I've said that forever on air. I'm not one of these crazy, Yahoo fans. Where's Andrew? No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that it did affect the team. GP2 had a couple of stints of injuries that kind of jacked up the rotation. Clay got off to a really, really slow start. For whatever reason. Draymond missed all of these games. Jackson Davis really didn't get into the rotation until 50 games in? Looney barely plays now. I mean, it's a lot going on. Andrew says Curry wants to win another championship with the Warriors, so good luck with that. When your older players are your best players in a league where the opposition and upcoming teams' players are younger, it's hard to win championships. I think that when you have a balance of veterans and young players that are dynamic, then you got a chance. If Jonathan Kuminga was clearly, unequivocally, the Warriors' second best player on the team, I think he was for about maybe 3 or 4 weeks. He had a run of about 15 games where I thought he was playing like the second best player on the team. He's not doing that right now. He's not. I really don't know if Curry can win another championship with the Warriors. Yeah, I don't know if he can either. And I'm not overly concerned about that. I mean, how many players win 4 championships in their career that are 6'3"? Not many. Not many at all. You are immortalized when you win 2. Like Isaiah Thomas, he won 2. Jason Kidd won 1. Stephen Curry's won 4. being a Golden State Warriors has been very, very good to him. My whole thing is like with like a Klay Thompson. People talk about Klay not being here potentially and what he's worth. And, I mean, who are you going to replace Klay with? If Klay Thompson is not wearing a Warrior uniform, who are you going to replace him with? That's going to be as good as he is. Good luck with that. Chris Paul, if anybody's, I would be shocked if Chris Paul was on the team next year. And I would love to have Chris Paul on the team next year. I think Chris Paul has silenced his harshest critics this year. He's played very good basketball. You know, he had an injury period where he got hurt, you know. But overall, Chris Paul has been outstanding. I would give Chris Paul a solid B, probably a B+. But I think Chris Paul's going to be in the Lakers next year. Andrew the GOAT says JK and Moody might be traded in the offseason. Yeah, you know what? Definitely Moody. Kuminga, the only way that Kuminga, I could see him being traded is if the Warriors just decided that they were going to resign themselves to a rebuild, which is hard to conceive when you consider how much money the Warriors make. Now, they pay hundreds of millions in luxury tax, and I think you get to a point where the math just doesn't work. I get that, but I can't imagine any of these veterans showing up to work knowing that they don't have a good chance to win. The Warriors have been competitive in a lot of games this year. They just haven't won them. So if you're going to say we're not going to be competitive, good luck with that sales job. Maybe Curry should ask to get traded to a team where he can win. Come on. No. That's not going to happen. Stephen Curry is the greatest player in the history of the Golden State Warriors. The likelihood of there being another player as good as Stephen Curry is highly unlikely. Is it possible? Yeah, but highly unlikely. Do you want to see him in another uniform at age 36 when he has, maybe 2 more years left? Nah. No, you don't want to see that. You don't. You want to see him challenge for a championship, maybe win, I guess. But I think you want to see him looking respectable, you know, not looking like some vagabond on his knees, you know, winning 30, 25 games to tail end of his career. You don't want that. That's why a guy like Larry Bird, as soon as his back gave out on him, it was done. Larry Bird was not going to hang around and be horrible with Boston. I bet you he won't be happy with not winning his 5th ring. Well, he's a competitor. Okay. The Warriors need to get Curry some help in the offseason. Yeah, but here's the thing, Goat. How do you do that? You got a salary cap. You know, you have a salary cap and you have other teams that are on the rise. The only way that you can do it is to develop your young players like they did when they hired Mark Jackson. When the Warriors hired Mark Jackson, they had made the playoff in 13 years. The expectations were not low, but they were not grandiose by any stretch of the imagination. It was like, yo, let's build something. And Mark Jackson said, okay, build something. We're going to go to the playoffs. And he built a mentality in these young players to have extreme confidence Remember, Mark Jackson was the first one to say, literally, first or second year that Steph and Clay were together, this is the best shooting backcourt in the history of basketball. They laughed at Mark. Remember that, y'all? They laughed at him. I played with Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson was not a great defensive player by any stretch of the imagination. But he's a mentally tough guy. And he was a preacher before he was a preacher. And those sermons, those locker room sermons, resonated with his players. And they went out there and they developed a mentality that Steve Kerr was able to mortgage and take to a whole nother level. And they went out and got Iguodala. So my point is, they need to develop their younger players. At this stage, you know, we need to stop looking at Jackson Davis like he's some new shiny toy that no one else has in the neighborhood, and we're excited to have it. No, dude, you've proven that those scouts didn't know what the hell they were doing when they evaluated you. Go out and develop and be a top 15 center in the NBA. You're 24 years old. Imagine if he came back next year, able to play 35 minutes a game, averaging 15 points a game, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks, shooting 75% from the free throw line as opposed to 66, 68%, which is not good enough. Is what he shot at Indiana. That was a trepidation that I had when they were talking about drafting the guy. And I loved him, but I was like, you can't be a big guy getting fouled shooting in the high 60s. That's going to cost you games. Curry is the brand of the Warriors. He's not going anywhere. There you go. A sensible man. The Warriors have to make some trades, and okay. Maybe it hurt the Warriors not having a defensive assistant this year. Well, if you ask them, they probably have one. I don't know, the impact. Mark Jackson also said Curry ruined the game. Yeah, he was laughing, all right? I know Mark. Mark has a dry sense of humor. Which team would you like to see the Warriors play in the play-in? Saint Ladies of the Poor, with Sister Aloysius and as a starting point guard of their team. How about anybody? Okay, how about anybody? It's probably going to be the Lakers, right? And the Lakers are not a great matchup for the Warriors. It's just not. Can the Warriors beat the Lakers? Yeah. Would they be favored against the Lakers? No. Particularly if it's in Los Angeles. They would not be favored. They're not a good matchup for the Warriors. They're just not. The Warriors' defense hasn't been that bad. Hasn't been that good this year. No, it's been atrocious. It's been. I mean, when Draymond came back, they got a boost. And also the Warriors' less effective offense has hurt their defense because schematically, they couldn't be as diverse because they haven't made as many shots this year. Which is kind of a problem. This has been a tough stretch for Stephen Curry. I mean, post All-Star break, it's only averaging like 22, 23 points a game. Again, today, I thought he looked really good today. He was hopping around, cutting to the basket, shoulders were square, shooting threes. Didn't look like he was physically impaired at all, man. I really like what I saw. But on Tuesday, they got to go to Miami, and you know what they're going to do? They're going to try to beat the crap out of him. So you know, I want to see Clay in the starting lineup. I mean, hey, I want to see Clay in the starting lineup. If it is a situation where Brandon takes a step back because he feels away, although I've seen this young man rally, not start, come off the bench and play great. But I think the Warriors have to get off to a good start. This idea that they're going to make a strong push offensively and defensively in the third quarter to get on top of teams, I don't think they have the ability to do it. I just don't. I think that they can lock in defensively when they have a lead, particularly on the road. They play good basketball on the road. But when they got to climb a hill offensively and teams know that Stephen Curry is their only viable option, it's ugly. It looks really bad. And I'm just going to say it. I mean, to have a guy like Moses Moody not getting any minutes, and we're talking about players getting burnt out. I mean, come on, man. I don't like that at all. Even Moody, even damn, I have a brain fart right now. Kevon Looney. I mean, Looney not even getting in the game. I mean, Sharek not. Kerr's rotations this year, there've been some head scratchers, man. It really has been. And that dude knows more about pro basketball than I will ever know if I studied the game for 24 hours a day for 10 years. You know, I honestly believe that. It doesn't mean that he gets everything right. And the rotations this year have been crazy. Man, Baylor choked 6 for 26 from the line. Yeah, Jimmy. I had Baylor making it, I believe, to the Elite Eight. Certainly didn't have them going to the Final Four. But for Baylor to lose at Clemson, come on, man. That's nuts. SG says opening day for baseball is 4 days away. Huh. How do you guys feel about the Giants replacing Rennell as the announcer? Announcers get replaced, but I heard something from Larry Baird I thought was totally disingenuous. She's been the public address announcer for the Giants, I guess, for 24 years. Larry Baird goes, well, we don't have a replacement, so we're going to have a series of replacements because Rennell is a legend. You just fired her. I mean, I thought that was just like, come on, Larry. Really? On one end, you're firing her, and then you're going to turn around and go, well, she's a legend, so we don't really have anybody to replace her now. I mean, what is that about? Finally the Giants started to get some players, and then you get rid of one of the most popular, most respected, Giant community members. You really think the West is kind of lucky that the Grizzlies are hurt this year? Absolutely. Yes. And here's the thing, Andrew. The Grizzlies are going to get a high draft pick. So they're going to, Gigi, they developed that kid out of South Carolina. Ja Morant's going to come back. They're going to get a top-notch draft pick. The NBA is tough. As she says, Renell Brooks Moon was one of my favorite PA announcers for the San Francisco Giants, and she is an absolute legend. Yeah, so why she lose her job? I don't get it. Help me out. The GOAT says the Grizzlies are going to beat a lot of good teams next year. And I think the Nuggets will be a 7th seed next year. Yeah, you know, here's the thing. I'm not like, again, hot take guy. But this is why the LeBron James rumors are not going to go away. The LeBron James to the Warriors rumors are not going to go away. Because this is kind of like one more for the Gipper. You know, if LeBron James is on the Warriors next year, even if you got to give up a Kuminga and draft picks or whatever, the Warriors are better. They're much better. Because you have the periphery effect. All of a sudden, you have good players who are willing to take less money to put on a Warrior uniform. Play for the minimum. Because you'll literally be in line to win another championship. So those rumors, I'm not starting the rumors. Rumors are out there. It's probably not going to happen, but they're not going to go away. And she says, Brooks Moon has announced more than 2,000 games since Oracle Park's first opening day. In 2000, after becoming one of the Major League Baseball's first black female PA. Yeah, I've known Renell for a long time. Known of her. I've been in her presence. I don't like have a relationship with her, but I've been in her presence for a long time because I've been in radio. And she used to work at KMEL, was great in the morning at KMEL. She's also really good friends with a good friend of mine. So I've been at a couple of events where Renell has been there. And just a delightful human being, consummate pro, professional. And I just think that as an audience, as a fan base, casual or close, we deserved a little more than this. And I'm not a Giant fan. I'm a Giant supporter. I like to see them do well. But for those who were fans of Renell and fans of the Giants for taking that, that big leap 20 plus years ago, to do something great, to basically fire her, call her a legend, but replace her, I don't think that's cool at all. What about the Greek Freak? That one's actually might happen next year for the Warriors. Nah, I don't see that happening. And the reason why I don't see it happening is because he signed the extension. And if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, that small market team where everybody is eating off of Giannis, you gonna give him up? No, you're not gonna give him up. You will fire everybody in the building to keep him. That's why Adrian Griffith got fired, because Giannis co-signed it. I mean, listen, Adrian Griffith, as wrong as it was, probably is sitting on about $12, $15 million right now. He's never made that money as an assistant coach. They're eating that. Whatever his contract is, they're eating every bit of it. Jimmy says, Dame is there. He ain't leaving. Yeah. Can't see that. I can't see Giannis. Now, would Giannis want to go to the Warriors? Hell yeah. Got a mansion in LA. The Warriors are unquestionably one of the top run organizations in all of sport. He'll be a big hit. He's still in his prime. Do you think KD would leave? Listen, if KD could have a redo, he would tell Draymond he's probably number one and say, yo, let's get it. Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, to me, I haven't talked to Kevin, but sitting in the bleachers and the rafters, that was one of the worst decisions that any pro athlete's ever made. Because Kevin Durant is not winning a championship in Phoenix. Not happening. He already got a little egg on his face when Draymond and Steph and Clay won one without him. With Andrew Wiggins. So yes, I think he would come back. Hell yeah. In a heartbeat. If he wasn't going to look bad. It'll be a great PA announcer for the Giants. I have such a booming, stop it. I have such a booming voice, and I also took a radio broadcasting class. I would love to announce the players and introductions. SG, you need to stop, man. You need to stop. At this rate, Durant will be on every team before his career is over. Yeah. Mark Gray says, I agree, Frank. I think KD probably wishes he stayed with the Warriors. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. KD's probably never had like a teammate talk to him like that before. And I get it. There's some lines and there's some fences that need to be mended. Seemingly he and Draymond did that, got kind of close, I guess. But I mean, I think he should have stayed. I mean, they would be on championship 5 or 6 right now. Andrew the GOAT. What are some things that Jonathan Kuminga needs to work on to become a better basketball player all around for the Warriors? All right. First and foremost, he needs to he needs to be a better listener. Because there are flashes where he can turn into Superman, put his cape on, and do like unbelievable things. He assumes that he can do that with everybody, and he just can't. He can't. I also think that film study is something that I don't know how engaged he is doing film study, but become a better student of the game. He's clearly a hard worker because he has improved a great deal in a very short period of time. And monetize your ego. I mean, how do you make your ego smaller? I think when you just have to almost acquiesce to the vets, it's kind of like when I was in college. At some point, I had to accept the fact that my coaches knew more than I did. And even though the messages that they gave me wasn't always nice, when I started to adhere to what they were saying, I got better. I was like, oh, okay, I got better. Remember, I learned how to play in the post, and all of a sudden the game slowed down, my footwork improved. That's Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, sometimes he just goes 1-on-4. You can't go 1-on-4. So I think just being a better student of the game, acknowledging that he needs to turn his ego down a little bit. And acknowledge that some of these veterans, even though they're older, they know more than he does. Trust his coaches a little bit more. Mark says JK needs to work on his ball handling. Yes, he does. But Here's the irony, Mark. He's actually a very good ball handler for a guy his size. What he does is he dribbles into problem areas. You can't dribble into traffic with three guys. When Stephen Curry dribbles into traffic with three guys, he loses the ball too. You got to be smarter. You know, you have to take your time. You have to assess some of the problem areas. He doesn't do that enough. The Warriors covering the three-point line this year has been a huge issue. Have you noticed that one? I actually think post 35 games, I thought at the beginning of the year they were god awful. They were one of the worst in the league. But I think that their rotations have gotten better. The Warriors haven't done very well getting loose balls. Teams have gotten second and third shots on the Warriors at the most inopportune times. So I think their perimeter defense has gotten better. Still not great, but it is a lot better than it was at the beginning of the year. The first 30 games was just atrocious. Glendocious, what's up, Fred? How you? Whose minutes should Moses Moody be taking? It's crazy he's not getting any time at all. Little Steph, little Clay, and some of Brandon's. You know, I think that there's probably 10 to 12 minutes out there, maybe like some GP2. Now, a lot of this it's predicated on how well he's playing. No one should get minutes just because. You know, so if he's not playing well, or he's not playing hard, he shouldn't be playing. But of all the Warrior players, I would say that he hasn't gotten the run that I think he deserves. Remember, Kerr basically gave a proclamation about Brandon Podzinski like 10 games into the season. He was like, he's in the rotation after 10 games. And true to his word, it doesn't matter if Brandon has a bad game or not. I mean, he still plays. Kerr has been so. If I'm Brandon Podzinski, Kerr's never watching his car again. Very few rookies get an opportunity to play in their first year on a really good team like he has, and actually define a role for himself and actually play well. So happy for him. But I think a lot of his success is because of the commitment that Kerr has made to him. Conversely, he hasn't made that same commitment to other players. Like even with James Wiseman, a lot of you guys and women out there might not be following this. A lot of people thought Wiseman was going to be out of the league. It was going to fall completely on his face. He hasn't. James Wiseman's going to be in the league. James Wiseman's going to Detroit, taking some stuff that he's learned from the Warriors, and he's starting to craft an actual game and maybe build a career for himself. You know, so he never really got the opportunity with the Warriors. He never really did. Do you think the Warriors could use a really good defensive assistant coach next year? You can always use good coaches on your staff. So the answer is yes. If someone has a skill set that can come in, that can add to what Atkinson brings to the table, and some of the other assistants that the Warriors have, then absolutely. You can never have too many good coaches. You know? Do I think just bringing somebody in to disrupt chemistry? Nah, I don't know about that. But if there's a coach out there who has a scheme or a way of communicating to players that they get it, hell yeah. My question is to you is what is the main issue on why the Warriors are blowing so many big leads this year in games? It's a combination of things. Their perimeter defense at various points this year has not been very, very good. The NBA has good teams and good players. The rotations have not been great this year. And again, Kerr is juggling a lot of different things. He's juggling how many minutes do I play Stephen Curry versus I need to trust some of these players so we can get better down the road. And it's been hit or miss. It seems like they've settled on 8 minutes now with Curry coming into the fourth quarter. Sometimes I'm like, yo, start of the fourth quarter, he needs to be out there. But again, they have all of this analytical data with regards to how effective he is post 32, 33 minutes. I get it. Which is why I think Klay Thompson should be starting. You know, because when Klay's not in the lineup, teams are licking their chops at the start of games. Particularly if they're a good team, like Indiana came in here on Friday, was like, yo, let's get it. They're the number one scoring team in the NBA. The Warriors were not going to outscore them. No way in hell. They needed to, get off to a really, really good start and then lock in defensively. Play zone against Indiana. The Lakers beat Indiana tonight. The Warriors should have beat them. They could have beat them. I don't think they had the right scheme. Mark Graves says, I think Curry is taking advantage of Moody's disposition as a young player, knowing he won't sulk by not getting playing time. You're absolutely right. Mark, you're right. And, I don't want to not acknowledge that, as far as I'm concerned, Moody hasn't had a check bounce. I mean, this guy's making over $3 million a year. They've already picked his option up next year. He's still a young developing player. We really don't know what he is. We don't know. So depending upon the organization that you go to, you can get caught up in the numbers game, and it sucks. I don't like it. There's a young man on Indiana that we got a chance to see a little bit of on Friday, Ben Shepherd. I like Ben Shepherd. I think Ben Shepherd's going to be a hell of a player. But there were long stretches this year in which he didn't play. So I just would have loved to have seen Moody get a chance, like a 15-game chance where you can have some real data. You can't really look at 3 or 4 games and draw any conclusions about Moses Moody. I don't think you can. Andrew says the Warriors have two big game against Dallas Mavericks coming. Yeah. They got some tough. Yeah, the Warriors play Miami, Orlando, and then Charlotte. Charlotte's even playing better. None of those games are easy. And Dallas is good. Dallas is real good. So, yeah, and you have to kind of look at the front court. I mean, this small ball era, the league changes, man. I mean, Draymond is still a good defender, but he gets overwhelmed sometimes. I mean, the game's a lot easier when you have a big 7-footer that you can throw the ball into and get easy buckets and have that person be a defensive force. The thing here's the one thing that really bothers me about the Warriors. The Warriors don't develop players from the scrap heap. Unless it's like some little guard or something, some Quinones or something. No. There are a lot of big players out there in the G League. 7-footers. Never getting a chance to play. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Even like as a post player. Physicality, man. The NBA is about physicality. You know, physicality. That's coached. You got to coach that up. And, you know, I mean, the Warriors might have to modify their system. They have to modify it. As opposed to having a high pick and roll with the big guy diving to the basket for a dunk, you might have to have a guy who you can throw the ball to on the post and have him go to work. The Warriors don't have that player. They haven't developed that player. Andrew says, I think the Warriors are better than what their round said. Yeah, I mean, they proved that today. I mean, they played well enough to win against Minnesota today. Jimmy says, what player has Kerr ever developed? Well, it's going to take some credit for Kuminga, right? I mean, a lot of people thought that Josh Giddey was going to be better than Kuminga. I don't think so. I think Kuminga is on a nice arc now. I think you got to give Kerr and his coaches some credit for that. Jackson Davis. I mean, like it or not, he was drafted 57th overall. He's been one of the best rookies in the NBA. Got to give the Warriors some credit for that. But I'm talking about not only just kind of like legitimizing yourself as an NBA player. I'm talking about being a dude. You know, being a guy. I'll make a goofy sports show where we are going to mock players and humiliate them. Good luck with that. You know, that's going to do very well. We could, for a couple of minutes, we could talk about the NCAA. But I want to tell you about a movie that I saw. The movie is called Love, Lies, and Bleeding. And it's starring Kristen Stewart of the werewolf fame. Those werewolf shows. I never watched that stuff, you know. But I've always kept my eye on Kristen Stewart. She's one of the few actresses who's willing to go there, who's really about the art, who's not necessarily about the fame and the fortune. You know, she's looking for the work. So she's daring. And she's in a crazy, low-budget, independent film that has murder, sex, intrigue, steroids, all mixed up into a bowl, into a kind of an interesting story. I don't want to give anything away. But if you are a person who likes independent films and you're not weirded out by non-traditional things, then you might want to check this movie out. I recommend it. Love, Lies, and Bleeding by Kristen Stewart. It also has the great Ed Harris in the movie, who is a phenomenal actor. And a new actress, her name is Katie M. O'Brien, who said that she had to actually audition 6 times to play the love interest of Kristen Stewart. And she's great also. So check it out. If you like going to the movies, you might want to check that one out. All right. and report back to me. Mark Graves says, I think a few shows ago you said that big guys need to learn the jump hook shot. Yes. If TJD learned this shot, he could be very valuable. Absolutely. And he's left-handed. So, yeah, I'm a big believer in player development. I look at a guy like Robostein. Who's the left-handed center for the Knicks? He's just tough. He's a tough-ass guy. Started his career with the Denver Nuggets, German. He comes from Germany. And that's just Thibodeau. Thibodeau's like, yo, dude, if you don't play defense, you don't box out, if you're not physical, you can't play for me. You will not. Yeah, Hardenstein. Not the most skilled guy in the world, but very effective. His plus minus is, I'm sure, is off the charts. He's just a physically tough dude. It's not that hard. That's what the Warriors need. You know? What do you guys think of Calipari? I mean, a lot of people are like, hey, we need to get rid of this guy. He got out-coached. I mean, he definitely got out-coached. But no one's ever said he was a great coach. You know? With NIL now, not that Oakland had a lot of NIL players. I'm not saying they did. But you're going to find some under-the-radar teams that have a lot of financial backing that are going to compete against these blue bloods. I'll give you one. Grand Canyon has NIL all over it. They have a bunch of freakazoids on that team. St. Mary's had no chance. And I guarantee you, I actually did some research on a couple of those guys before I came on air. And I'm not going to kind of expound on it. But if you look at some of the backgrounds, they have guys that were slated to go to Kansas. They have 7-8 transfers on that Grand Canyon team from Arizona State. I mean, I'm talking big-time programs. That's about money. And they showed today, because they didn't play a very smart game. I don't know how smart those guys are or what type of chemistry they had, but they were talented. And they play in a weak league. So Drew can load up pretty much every year and have a team that's going to win 25-plus games a year. They just overwhelmed St. Mary's. They really did. And I had St. Mary's make it to a Sweet 16, but they got the worst possible draw that they could get. I don't know if they would have beat Alabama. I think they probably would have showed better against Alabama than Grand Canyon, just because of the athleticism. Alabama has good athletes, but I think Grand Canyon had even better athletes, and they just overwhelmed St. Mary's. Andrew says maybe the Warriors should get another forward/center in the offseason so Green does not have to do so much and hurt his body a lot. Yeah, I'm sure Draymond would like that, because it's become apparent now that, he needs some help. There's no doubt about that. So, all right, y'all, we've been kicking around for about an hour and 15 minutes. I want to be respectful of everybody's evening, start of the week. So I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to get out of here. Tough loss tonight. The Warriors have another game on Tuesday against, I think it's Miami, Orlando, and Charlotte. They need to win all of them. There is no guarantee that they'll be in the play-in this year. And we're going to see what the team's made of. SG says, Love, Lies, Bleeding chronicles a relationship between a reclusive gym manager with a crime family and an ambitious bodybuilder. Yeah, that's what it's about. What is your thoughts on how Arizona Wildcats are playing in March Madness? Arizona can win it all. They really can. They got a kid from Oakland on their team from Arizona State, who I think it's kind of a fringe NBA guy. I can think of his name right now. But he's good. They're well coached. I think that their worst enemy might be themselves. If they just kind of come out lackadaisical and don't stay locked in, a team could get on top of them. But they have everything they need to win a national championship. There's absolutely no doubt about it. They're good. I was also really impressed with Gonzaga, which shocked the hell out of me because I didn't see that level of efficiency in the regular season. But they have looked as good as anybody. Once the tournament started, I picked North Carolina to beat Marquette in the championship game. UConn's the best team, but I didn't want to pick UConn because everybody's picking UConn. Love how Carolina is playing. I think Baycott has helped himself among the pros in the NBA. He probably still won't get drafted, but I could see him signing a two-way deal and maybe continue to work to get better. Keep your eye on RJ Davis as maybe a guy who could, kind of can be like a little small point guard / shooter like him. I like North Carolina. And Toller, the point guard of Marquette. Smart, plays like Scott Skiles. They're good. And just kind of a redemption story for Shaka Smart, who just had a tough time at Texas, could never get that right. But I think he's in the right place at Marquette right now. He has a hell of a team. So Arizona's legit. Arizona can win it. There's about 6 teams that can win it. But I think UConn is the best team in terms of cohesiveness, depth, chemistry, coaching, toughness, change of styles of play, all of that. So they're going to have a really bad game to lose, which could happen. I expect it to happen. As she says, Kristen Stewart is a gorgeous actress. She is beautiful. Yeah, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. I think she's attractive, but I think that she's daring. I think there's a certain curiosity about her. She's definitely not afraid to go there, express her sexuality. She can do anything. I think Kristen Stewart is really, really talented. I like her as an actress. All right, y'all. Probably talk to you all on Tuesday. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight on the program. I really appreciate you so much. And I look forward to talking to you again. My name is Frank Red, if you're listening for the first time. And if you like the show, then subscribe. Hit the like button. Hitting the like button definitely helps. Follow me on X as well. And I'm going to do my thing and get out of here. Success and getting paid is a manifestation of the whole process. If you're the individual, don't do things to help other people make their lives better. As far as I'm concerned, you haven't done nothing. The biggest story of today, to me, is the Stanford women team advances to the Sweet 16 after a tough battle against the Lady Iowa State Cyclones. Glad to see that moving on. All right. Good night, everybody. Peace.